is Maralee Burnett. I am your astrologer, back with the messages for the week of November 3rd, which as usual is a power-packed week, and this is a power-packed month, which has everything to do with this being Scorpio season, of course, and we have a very impactful full moon in the sign of Taurus coming up this week. We have retrogrades to get ready for, all kinds of inner work to do, which again makes perfect sense for this time of year. Of course, if you want to stay tuned and get a breakdown for the full moon in the sign of Taurus, you want to make sure that you are subscribed and that you get a notification as soon as I post my content. And for today's messages, I will cover the week, and then at the end, we will do the breakdown by sign for everyone so that they can start working and planning on what to bring to fullness, what to bring to completion with the help of that full moon in the sign of Taurus. And that means if you go out to my website now at maraleeburnett.com, you can already start doing the work, because I have the article for the full moon out there. I have the breakdown for the full month of November out there. So just register, become a member, and then that way the content is mailed to you. You don't have to go searching for it on my website, and I don't spam you, and you'll just be part of my small little circle of people that I choose to work with. So thank you for joining me today, liking, commenting, sharing my work. Again, clicking on that subscribe button now. And that way you get also notifications, hopefully, every day, because I post on my shorts for tarot cards. So you get a tarot message, and I sprinkle in a little astrology for the day as well. So again, I'm out there working for you, trying to make this as easy of a transition as possible as we wrap up the last 2 months of this 9-year, which has been a lot of big endings, and they're not over yet. And I definitely expect some pretty powerful ones as we get towards the end of November as well. So again, you want to make sure you're here to hear all about it. Now, if you're new to my channel, I do use the Astrologer software. I do a breakdown day by day of the major energy and what's going on. And we'll get started with that right now. So as I mentioned, we are looking here at Monday, November 3rd. And again, if you've been following me, it seems like each Monday, the energy's been so intense for the past several weeks, and this one is not really any different. So if you were hoping that this week would be a little calmer, it's not, and I just don't expect it to be all the way through the end of the year. So you have to make sure you're spending time doing the things that bring you joy, make you happy, and not expecting the outer influences to be doing that for you. This is very individual work. And as we kick off Monday, as I mentioned, if you're following me last week, we've been watching the transition through this 29-degree point of Scorpio from Mercury's perspective. So last week I said, pay attention to Monday and Tuesday. If something comes up for you that day, even if it's a feeling, there's more to the story, and we won't know what that is yet until Mercury comes back over those same degrees again. Happens to be at the time it's Cazimi and a new moon, that there's some big aha moment, shocking information that's coming. Well, Mars, as we kick off this week, is again in that area where this big explosive event is going to happen. And Mars is explosions. And Mars is at the 29th critical crisis degree of Scorpio on Monday. And it's in a face-off with Uranus in Gemini, which is getting ready to transition back into the sign of Taurus, where it will spend its last several months exploring the things that we value. Is it love? Is it beauty? Is it money? What are the material things that we're so attached to, but misaligned with, that we need to break free from? And that's the discussion that starts today with this confrontation between Mars and Uranus. Now, just last week, it happened between Mercury and Uranus. And Mercury, again, is going to come back and have a follow-up conversation as it starts its retrograde. And we'll be talking about that next week. But Mercury is subtler than Mars. And when Mars and Uranus, so we got fire and lightning coming together, it can literally create an explosion. Now, the point of the explosion is to break you free from something. Don't be the one that's adding the fuel to the fire, or you're likely to get into some major heated conflicts. So if you had heated conflicts last week, this is going to feel like that conflict's on steroids. And if you didn't like your response last week, then you need to take a step back and take a deep breath so that this doesn't become worse. So there's something to have been learned from last week's interactions, and you can do better. You can be more in your power with Mars in Scorpio than you are necessarily with Mercury, because Mercury's childish and childlike. Mars is a commander, a warrior. Mars is not taking any crap either. So I do expect this conflict to be more intense. And like I said, if you want to maintain the control over the energy, use it for good. Use this to find a way to meet in the middle. But Uranus in Gemini is, unexpected information and surprises. So you have a harder time controlling the Uranus piece of this, which is your mouth, because this is Gemini, which is your mind and the thoughts that you're thinking. So you might have to put yourself in a little bit of a timeout so that you don't make a poor choice. And both are being fueled by Pluto. So this is collective energy, right? Pluto in Aquarius. So there are groups behind both sides of this conflict that are helping to fuel it. You might even have one person who is creating the conflict because they have something to gain from it. So watch the mental games that are going on. Watch how somebody is pitting two sides against one another. And if you are those two sides, you will have the most power if you can meet in the middle. So this is going to go on for a couple of days, including through that full moon. So we're going to continue to watch this conflict. Mars, though, that's going to transition into the sign of Sagittarius. So the conflict continues but shifts. And so we're going to be watching for that as a collective. We also see the other outer planet, which is Neptune, of course, back into its home sign, Pisces, for its last visit of these 14 years that we've been working on this area of our life and our chart. And it, too, is still speaking in harmony with that Uranus energy and now speaking in harmony with Mars. So these are two emotional water signs. So we need to trust our intuition. We need to act on our feelings, but we don't need to overreact to something that is going on with our emotional self. But there's opportunity if we listen and trust our intuition. There's something to be gained from that, not from the attacking. That just is going to cause more fights. But instead, if we take a step back, tune in, and see the bigger picture, what's actually going on here, we may be able to resolve the conflict in an easier way. So that is, just a little tension to get us started off on Monday. The other thing that we have going on today, and we talked to it last week too, is we've got Jupiter, of course, in the sign of Cancer. On 11/11, it will go retrograde. So now we'll have Jupiter slowing down as it gets ready to make the turn. And that means the Jupiter energy is getting stronger. And Jupiter is already a really big planet. So emotional experiences are building even more. And we've got Jupiter working again in harmony with Saturn in Pisces. This is an older leader, right? Saturn in Pisces, maybe an older spiritual leader, working in harmony with someone younger, someone who is spiritual also, but in a different way. Somebody who is looking to protect the families, that's Jupiter in Cancer, and needs the help of this wise older guide to get this work done. And there's a lot of work to be done. This Jupiter energy is going to go retrograde until March 11th of next year. So there's a lot to unravel that is not working, and we need to reconsider things that involve food and nutrition and families and make different choices. So there's tension between this Aries energy, which is Chiron, and the moon will be joining. So again, tempers may really flare over this conflict. We're seeing this in the US with the benefits issues, with the SNAP benefits about to be shut off. By the time I've recorded this, it may have already been. There's a lot of outcry. There's a lot of frustration. And we've got Venus in the sign of Libra. Part of this conflict, this is the law having a role in trying to resolve this conflict. And it's, the people and the families that are suffering from this. And that isn't what's meant to be. So we need to calm the conflict, move this off of the family shoulders and onto the government shoulders in order to get this resolved. So that's Monday. As I mentioned, a little intense day to start the week. And then we head here into Tuesday. And as I've mentioned now, still the conflict between Mars and Uranus. But now, instead of being hidden and beneath the surface, Mars and Scorpio is now out front, right? It's in a fellow fire sign. It's in the sign of Sagittarius, where things get moving, things get bigger, because of course Jupiter rules the sign of Sagittarius and expands on whatever it touches. So whatever visits the sign of Sagittarius is bigger than normal. And so Mars, being bigger than normal, is an even bigger, stronger warrior. Mercury in Sagittarius doesn't feel as comfortable as Mars, because Mercury's home sign is the opposite. It's Gemini. Mercury likes all the details, but it doesn't like all the facts and all the details to get blown up, because there's too many. There's too much to pay attention to. And trying to fit all of those little details into the bigger picture, it can be a little overwhelming. Plus, Mercury is slowing down and getting ready to go retrograde. It'll hit 6 degrees. And then on the 9th, after this full moon, it too is going retrograde. So we have this feeling energetically that things are slowing down. Even though time's seeming to move so quickly right now, there's something about the quality of the time that feels heavy, that feels sluggish, that takes a lot of energy just to get through day by day. And so as both of these planets are slowing down, we're feeling a collective shift coming. And until they actually change direction, it's going to feel a bit like there's a heaviness that we're trying to navigate through. So we see that coming up on Tuesday. We also see the moon starting to head into the sign of Taurus. So of course that is getting ready to set us up for that full moon. So let's move ahead to Wednesday and look at when we have this full moon in the sign of Taurus happening. So I'm just going to adjust this like I always do to show us more in line with that actual energy. All right, so we're looking at 13 degrees of Scorpio for the sun and 13 degrees for that moon in Taurus. So, of course, every time there's a full moon, it means the moon is in opposition to the sun, and that creates tension. That creates a lot of emotional outbursts, right? Because the moon is our feelings. And when the sun powers up our feelings, we have some very strong reactions. Now, the good news is that moon in Taurus is very happy here. It likes the luxury that is offered in the accommodations at the sign of Taurus, that of course is ruled by Venus, which I always lovingly refer to as Cleopatra laying on her chaise lounge and being fed all kinds of wonderful decadences, right? By whoever you imagine feeding you, right? That's the energy of Taurus. It's indulgent. It feels amazing. So the moon's really happy here. It enjoys that energy. It's like it's home away from home. So this can have us feeling finally like we've got our footing. There's something that's helping root and ground us, and something that is helping us like indulge the senses. This Taurus energy is very sensual. Like to say Scorpio energy, the opposite is very sexual, but there's this sensuality in the Taurus energy that is maybe a little over the top during this full moon. What is interesting is that these two stand alone. There isn't any other planets that are affecting the full moon. And even Venus, ruler of this full moon, is very strong. She is in her second home away from home in the sign of Libra. Almost done with her time there. So her energy is very strong at this time. And it could be that Lady Justice is really stepping up to bring an end to the fight for resources in some way, is definitely a possibility. So Taurus energy is very much aligned with Earth, right? It's an Earth sign, which is aligned with the money that we make. This is the money that we use, of course, to make all of those fabulous purchases that we think will bring us joy. Taurus is material things. Again, the opposite is that Scorpio, which is the spiritual things that we exist in and around, but they're not physical. We can't touch them. We can't touch like astrology. We can't touch what it is, right? There's a concept there. That is all the things that are hidden and beneath the surface that are energetic and exist, but they don't necessarily have form. Well, all the things in the sign of Taurus have form. We can touch them, we can taste them. That's why I say they're tied to the five senses, because we have a physical experience around them. So there is some in your life, and we'll discuss it at the very end of today's session, based on your rising sign, that is coming to fullness, coming to completion. And it could be something that is luxurious. It could be something financial. It's all going to depend on what house this is happening in for you. And then we have to look at the energy supporting, right? So the supporting players, and what are they doing at the time of this full moon, because they interact with the energy and they are what help us complete this goal. Well, as I mentioned, we've still got this confrontation going on between Mars in the sign of Sagittarius and Uranus in the sign of Gemini. This can be conflicts about information, conflicts about details, conflicts about AI, right? And Sagittarius, foreign people, foreign places, foreign countries, adventure, exploration, knowledge, higher education. Now, Sagittarius is higher education. And then if you think about Gemini, It is, you think of primary school, right? These are just the bases of knowledge. And so there's this conflict about information, about knowledge, about thinking we know it all, and being confronted about our speech and what we're saying is true that isn't. So there is something about the truth that is being challenged. And from this challenge, you are becoming more aware of what you need to set yourself free on. Maybe it's just a way of thinking about money, about resources, that you have to change your mind in a pretty big, dramatic fashion in order for whatever this is in your life to come to completion, to come to fullness, to close this chapter so that a new one can begin. You have to be willing to figure out what's real and what's not, what's true and what's a lie. So it is a very intense week, and we got a preview of it last week from Mercury's perspective. But like I said, Mercury isn't nearly as strong as Mars. And so when Mars comes in and has the same argument with the energy from Uranus in Gemini, it's a much bigger conflict. So we'll expect some pretty big fireworks as we navigate through this big ending, whatever that will be. And then all of the other energies we already talked about Monday are continuing. That minor triangle of the outer planets. Remember, this is still collective energy, things that are going on behind the scenes, helping move us through this. Now, there is this energy, though, with Libra's Venus energy that is speaking at an odd angle back to Neptune and Pisces. So here's where, like I said, we have to be willing to take off the rose-colored glasses. So if there's anything that you've been a part of that you haven't been real about, then as Neptune and Venus speak today during the full moon, wherever you're deluding yourself, you won't be able to any longer. So in conjunct is energy that has a difficult time getting along. So Pisces can be very delusional, but Libra's, the scales of justice is like, if you've been trying to deceive somebody, that deceit will be exposed by the light of the full moon. And as a result, some pretty swift, quick changes are going to happen. All right, so we'll break that down as we get to the end of the recording. If you can't wait, I will timestamp it and you can go and listen to it right away. But I'm going to keep us moving forward within the week so it doesn't get too confusing and doing a lot of back and forth. So I'm just going to move us through the next few days here pretty quickly so that we can spend more time breaking it down by sign. But right now, let us move ahead to Thursday. Another big, powerful day. And again, if you've been following me, we've been talking a lot about yods, or what's considered a finger of God. I like to call it your personal mission. And so for those of you who have late degree Libra energy, you've been seeing this activated several times as we've had the sun come through here, Mars came through here, Mercury came through here, the moon stopped by once a month, and the finger where it points, which is this 29-degree Libra, is where we have to do the work. And so this is where we're trying to restore justice, trying to restore balance, trying to improve the fairness in the relationships, whether they're whether they're business or personal, that occupy a major part of our life. And as Venus shows up here, this test, a relationship is tested in some way today. And that test you pass through the help given you by that Uranus and Gemini energy and that Neptune and Pisces energy. So again, this is where we speak the truth. We speak from the heart. We are following our spiritual guides, and we are trusting our intuition. So our intuition, Pisces, and our mind, Gemini, are coming together so that we have a very clear picture of what needs to be done in order for peace to be restored in some way. So again, this is only impacting you if you have these either very late degree or early degree planets in these signs, but it also is collective work that has been going on. And of course, we keep trying to have a ceasefire in Gaza, and then it falls apart, and then we try again. And so my guess is on Thursday, we'll see more talks about how to restore peace and balance and justice throughout the collective and not just in our own personal lives. But what adds a little extra energy to this is the fact that that moon that's been charged up from the full moon that just happened will join Uranus. And so there can be some very significant emotional response to this need for peace and balance. So this should stand out from the others because it's the last one and because it has the moon added in here for significance while it's very charged. So we shall watch and see what shows up for us on Thursday. The other thing powering up the energy on Thursday is Mars has moved on to that 1 degree of Sagittarius, and now it's speaking in harmony with Pluto. That is also still energizing Uranus and now the moon. So there is some pretty major response to this need for peace to be restored. So my guess is there is some big conflict, and then there is some very swift response to the conflict. If we do the right thing, the thing that's fair and just, then this conflict will be resolved quickly. If not, then this work, this mission is going to carry on. And it will carry on for a few days anyway, because Venus is going to leave Libra, her home away from home. Actually, it's her second home, and head into Scorpio, where things get a little deep and dark. And financially, over the next several weeks, things are going to get crunchy and crazy and uncomfortable. So we'll talk about that in a minute. So let's move ahead to Friday. All right. On Friday, we're starting to see Mercury really slow down. As I mentioned, it's going to go retrograde here at the 6 degrees of Sagittarius. It's got a couple more days of kind of sitting and spinning, applying the brakes before it does what looks or appears to be turning retrograde, which just means it's going around the corner of the sun. But as it turns the corner, it looks like it's going backwards. And that's our clue that the next 3 weeks are for reviewing and not necessarily starting new things, but refining anything that has an RE in front of it. We want to redo this area of our life and our chart before we move it forward in a much bigger way, really next year as we get into that 1 year. So things from a mercurial perspective will start to become difficult on Friday. So you're not going to go anywhere quickly. Your flights might be delayed. Foreign travel in particular may be really difficult. Knowledge, information, all the things are going to be wackadoodle. So double, triple check every email, every voicemail, every text that you send so that you don't end up making a huge mistake, and not a good time for signing contracts if you can possibly avoid it. So also keep in mind, anything that we try to make permanent during a Mercury retrograde will not remain permanent. So negotiating, build in plan, A, B, C, and D as options, because it's likely the first one won't stick. So if you're in Congress, it's not going to stick. Whatever we do, it will be a temporary Band-Aid, and there'll be more things that come to the surface that we can use or leverage to make something permanent down the road. But whatever happens now, it will just be temporary. Then we have Venus moving into the sign of Scorpio. Now, of course, this is where Venus is at fall, because Venus rules Taurus and Scorpio is the opposite energy of Taurus. And so, as I mentioned, Venus likes all the luxuries, right? And likes to see all the beautiful shining jewelry, the beautiful clothes, the beautiful hair, right? Venus loves all of those things. Well, when she moves into the sign of Scorpio for the next 3 weeks, it's like being stripped bare of everything. It's the naked and afraid show, literally. Venus is bare, naked in the sign of Scorpio, where she has nothing to hide behind. It's pure, raw energy and power. And that's not comfortable for Venus. And so if you are Venus ruled these next 3 weeks, you have to face your fears. Now, my personal belief is, even though a planet is at fall, it just means that the energy has something to learn here. It has a skill that it needs to acquire, whether it likes it or not. This is something Venus has to learn to face, that she has raw power and she has to face her fears and allow her to use it versus having everybody take care of her, right? So there is something where you are naked and afraid, some topic that you have to face over the next 3 weeks. And it's next year, late in the year, Venus will go retrograde in the sign of Scorpio. So I would tune in and see how you respond to Venus's energy being in the sign of Scorpio for you. And know that there might be more intense work and intense lessons next year, because as you know, when she goes retrograde, we're talking like 40 days of work, and it will be intense work. So here's a little preview, little mini lesson, but for the next 3 weeks, things like women, sexuality, power, money are going to go through a major death, rebirth, and transformation. So I expect the markets will be really wonky for these 3 weeks in particular. It's temporary because, of course, we also will have Mercury go back into the sign of Scorpio and again turn things on their head. There'll be, again, lots of unrest, but it should be temporary. These are not long visits. So whatever you're doing financially over the next 3 weeks, expect there to be a roller coaster ride. And if you can avoid it, don't make any major commitments from a financial perspective. And if you don't like to watch your assets go up and down in the stock market, move your money. But then you have to time when you move it back. And that's why we usually just say, write it out, because eventually things will drop, but then you get better deals, blah, blah, blah. And there's a lot of players in the stock market that want to see us all succeed. So it will be a temporary bump, but know that it will create some significant fear over the next several weeks. So don't feed the fear. Instead, take the power away from fear by not being afraid and just trusting that transformation can happen if we face our fears. But if we stay stuck in fear, we can't change. We can't create change. And today, Venus speaks at that inconjunct angle to that Uranus energy in Gemini, who's getting ready to boop right back into the sign of Taurus that she rules. So there is definitely weird, wonky, unexpected surprises happening that involve our finances. There also could be things that happen to the earth itself. So these energies are very well known for earthquakes and volcano eruptions, anything that disrupts the weather, with Uranus, the god of the sky, and Venus underneath the earth there, down in the Scorpio land, right? The underworld can just really shake and disrupt things. Maybe it's oil prices that are disrupted because of the conflict that's going on. But just expect it. If we expect the unexpected, then we won't be so shocked and surprised. But it's going to be a little bit of a rocky ride for the next several weeks. So just get in, put your seatbelt on, and hold on to your hat. It's going to be an interesting one. All right, so that is just a few fun things going on Friday. And as we transition over to Saturday, you are going to see now Uranus is back in the sign of Taurus. It's at 29 degrees. So this is the initial test. So we had it, of course, when Uranus went forward through here just before it entered into the sign of Gemini. We were being tested. What is it that you value? What is it that you love? And now Uranus is coming back to see if you are sticking to your story, or if you realized, based on the new information that you've gained while Uranus was in the sign of Gemini, that there's some things that you are no longer aligned with, things that don't match your values anymore, things that you don't actually love. You just loved how they made you look, or you loved how they made you feel, but they're not permanent. Material things are not permanent. They can be gone in a second. And as you realize that, you're deciding you may want to be investing in something deeper, less materialistic, something more intense, something that you have a spiritual connection to, which of course leans you more into the Scorpio energy, so that you have a combination of the two. And so while Uranus sits here at 29 degrees, it will feel intense, and it will feel as though we're being tested. And of course, we have several months for us to go through this experience. And then once we get into next year, Uranus is done with the review, then we're ready to move things forward that are attached to this energy and wherever this is in your chart. So finally, it is next year in 2026, when all of this major reviewing and overhauling is done, that we're going to start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But with Uranus back at 29 degrees, with Neptune at 29 degrees, both in retrograde, and of course, Saturn still in Pisces in retrograde, we're still ending stories, closing chapters that we don't want to carry forward and into the future with us. So this sextile between Uranus and Neptune is activated. The past is activated. Our lessons from the past are activated. There is a critical test that occurs. And as that moon squares with squares with Neptune, we may start to understand what unhealthy boundaries we have that we have to end. So there's some awakening, some aha moment that shows up for us on Saturday as a result of that energy. And then we also are seeing Venus square with Pluto, ruler of that underworld where she's at. So there's this test of basically of our fear. What are you afraid of? And Pluto is going to call you out on it in a big way. So take a look at that 0 degree of Scorpio energy in your chart and know that it may be a fear of not belonging, not fitting in that comes up today and makes you very uncomfortable. All right, that's Saturday. Yay, fun day. And as we wrap up the week, this is where we're going to probably feel the strongest energy, where things are slowing down and come to a standstill, because of course this is the day that Mercury will go retrograde, and it will stay retrograde until November 29th. So of course we're going to go through the Thanksgiving holiday with Mercury retrograde. So plan accordingly from a travel perspective, because things are going to be difficult. Things are going to be harder to get through. It's going to be harder to communicate. It's going to be harder to cook things. So just be prepared for that. But we'll first see the Mercury retrograde, of course, through the view of the Sagittarius energy before it gets back into that intense Scorpio energy, where it has its Mercury Cazimi moment at the time of a new moon. I've never seen anything like it. So personally, I'm very in awe of the energy and the change that is possible with the help of that upcoming new moon, which will be on the 19th and 20th. So, as I mentioned, redoing things. So, the beginning of this with Mercury in the sign of Sagittarius, for some, maybe you're going to travel back to a foreign country where you lived before, right? Mercury is movement and travel. Sagittarius is foreign countries. That's a possibility. Maybe some of you are going to learn a foreign language. Maybe you're going to get back to learning it. Anything to do with knowledge and spirituality and foreign countries, foreign people, foreign places, reconnecting with people from a foreign country could be a big topic during this retrograde. If you started an education in the past, this is the perfect time to pick that course of study back up and go deeper with it. So that's how we want to spend the first part, is about knowledge and growth and expansion, and where we maybe got off our path and how we can get back on that. That's how we want to spend the first part of this retrograde. And then as we get into next week, we're going to start talking about how we get into doing a complete transformation in some area of your life and starting something completely unexpected as a result of that upcoming new moon. All right. So that is how we're going to wrap up the week. And as we move forward and talk about next week, as I mentioned, it is on the 11th. So on 11/11, which of course we all wish at 11/11. We all think of it as a portal that is open on 11/11. And that is the date that we have Jupiter going retrograde. So my hope is that that's very positive. And as it goes retrograde, it is speaking still in a trine with Saturn. So these are the two big teachers in the sky that are trying to get us to come together, trying to help us heal. And now's the time for us to really dig in and do the work. So that is a big part of next week. And the Mercury retrograde, of course, is a big part of next week as well. So this is a week not to push things. Of course, we have Veterans Day also on 11/11. We have a lot of veterans concerned about the programs that help them at this time. So their voices may be very loud during this window of time as well. So like I said, we'll come back next week and we will break that all down. For now, we are going to go back to looking at what is possible for us on November 5th during this full moon in Taurus. And I'm going to do the breakdown now for every sign. So if you like to do ceremonies with the full moons, I talk about them a lot with the new moons, but also with the full moon, right? Because the moon is fully charged on a full moon. And this one, like I said, it's not being abused by other planets at this time. So this might be a good one, especially since it's an earth energy. If you want to charge up your crystals, you want to get those out and get them under the moonlight. That would be great. You're probably going to do that the night before, since the actual full moon's about 6 a.m. in the morning for us here in the West Coast anyway of the US. But get them out, get them charged up. Also, if you want to do things, setting intention on things that you want to complete, then you can work with the earth, writing out your intentions, burying them in the dirt, planting your seeds, letting go of things, right? That's all the things that we want to do. We want to conclude things. We want to conclude things that are not aligned with our values anymore. We want to let go of attachments to material things that are keeping us stuck and trapped in situations because we can't possibly survive without the thing. It's not true. So there's some awakening, some awareness for you, but working with the earth energy for whatever your rituals are, that will help you add more energy to whatever it is that you want to complete. Now, if you happen to be Aries, then Aries, this is your second house. So of course, the second house is all the things that we've been talking about. So you're getting ready to conclude something in the second house of, let's focus on the money that you make. So if you have a big project that needs to come to a conclusion, now's the time. If you are done with your job and instead want to start experience work that has more meaning, more purpose, then this is the time to make the end happen. And you get out of a situation that you feel stuck and trapped in because of your finances. But if you were really to look at all of the money that you have coming in, which is what the sun is doing in that 8th house for you, is shining a light on all the resources that you actually have available to you. And once you understand that, you have more freedom and flexibility, Aries, to break free from a job that is no longer serving you, and you can easily move on. Now, Taurus, this, of course, is in your first house. This is about you personally achieving the goals that you have for yourself. Now, this can be something very visual in nature. You may go through some kind of a beauty transformation. You may use this energy to decide that you're going to get healthy and that you're going to be improving upon your physical body, or you're just going to be improving your image. So you have this energy of the sun shining a light from your 7th house, which could be a serious relationship that you're in. It could be the fact that you're not in any kind of a serious relationship, and that realization makes you want to make some big changes about yourself. Or the sun's shining light on a serious relationship that you're in that it's toxic, and because of that, you're willing to end anything that is not aligned with you, your values, and what you believe in. And any relationship that doesn't allow you to shine, it'll come to an end. Then we have Geminis. Gemini, this is your 12th house. So earlier this week in the conversations, talking about Venus being naked and afraid. And that's what you're willing to do in order to face down any fears that you have. Because of course, these are your subconscious thoughts that are just running on and on and on, and you can't seem to get off the hamster wheel. This energy is going to help you do that. You're ready to put an end to whatever story has been running around in your head so that you can be free of it. and no longer have to be stuck listening to people and yourself put you down. That's done. That's over with. And so this is a perfect time to write out whatever that story is, whatever those words, those names that you keep hearing in there that basically say, I am not enough. Yes, you are. And only you can tell yourself that you are. Nobody else can convince you because you won't believe them. You have to believe this for yourself. And now is the time where you're energized and capable of making that happen. Now, it could be that people at work, because the sun's shining a light from your 6th house, are who's feeding those fears, are who are saying the things that make you doubt yourself. And so you're going to cut off those relationships and those people and not going to take it anymore. And you're going to believe in yourself going forward. Okay. Then moving on to the sign of Cancer. Cancer, you get along really well with this Taurus energy. It's in a sextile to you. So this is your 11th house. So these are friends and networking groups. There can be projects that you're a part of, and there can be something that you've been working on together that is ready to be completed. Now, you also may be a part of some groups that are sucking the life out of you or sucking all the fun out of why you joined them in the first place. And if that's the case, then you would be deciding that now's the time to leave those groups and to find someone new or something new that you're more aligned to. Now, the sun shines a light from your 5th house, which is showing you, what is it that you're passionate about and how can you make a difference? And once you're tuned into that energy, you'll know, are the groups that you're a part of the right groups now? Or do you have to get back to doing what you loved instead of being swayed maybe by your friends to come do it and you want to belong and you joined for them, but now it's time to decide what does your heart want, and that's what you're going to be going after going forward. Leos, this is happening for you in your 10th house. So this is all about your career, your status, your reputation, your fame and notoriety. So you are at the top of your game. And of course, we're talking Taurus energy in your 10th house, which is some pretty big financial gains potentially for you. Now, some of those gains may come about by leaving the job that you're currently in, because again, it no longer is an alignment with what it is that you want, which of course, as a Leo, you want to be in charge. You want to be recognized. You want to be an important leader. And if you're not able to do that, if you are not able to lead your team in the way that you want to, then the company that you work for is just no longer in alignment with your values and you will leave. Others are working for the right company. They have the support of their people. And as a result of that, you are getting elevated to a new level within the organization that you're a part of. And then, of course, there will be a big financial benefit to you as well. Can't wait to hear how that goes for you, Leos. Then we have Virgo. Virgo, this is your 9th house. So this is that energy that is Jupiterian. This is a time for growth. This is a time for maybe some higher education goals of yours to be achieved. This could be the time that you're connecting with a mentor to complete maybe a spiritual course of work in some way. And that sun shines a light across the sky from your 3rd house. So it is showing you know more than you think you do. And if you just start believing in what you already know, it's actually going to make this easier. Now, for some of you, you're too comfortable with what you know, and you're afraid of the unknown, and you're also afraid of not looking like you have all the answers. And so this can be a challenging time for you to let go of a security blanket of some kind and, step into the unknown. But if you do, there will be some pretty big financial rewards. So this is about investing in yourself, investing in your knowledge, and investing in your growth. Now, of course, I told you, this isn't the time to make huge financial commitments that you're uncomfortable with or feel like a risk. But if you have the resources and this opportunity presents itself to you, Virgos, you should absolutely go for it, because you will be rewarded in more ways than you ever expected. Libra, with your ruler Venus getting ready to leave your sign after 3 weeks, there is a final test, and it's starting to shape and take form at the time of this full moon. Now, this is a full moon in your 8th house, death, rebirth, transformation. And so this can have to do with a very personal journey that you've been on for the past 3 weeks that is affecting your ability to transform. So you will get the extra help you need to complete this. And for some of you, maybe that involves needing money. So maybe you've been rehabbing a house, for instance, and the money that you need to complete the work will show up for you. Maybe you're making some kind of an investment. And again, whatever the resources that you need, it will show up for you, because that sun is shining a light from the 2nd house of the money that you make. So it's also a good time to make sure you've got good balance in what you're spending and what you're making, and also making good choices with how you're spending and investing the money that you make. So there is some tension in the financial sectors of your chart. And as you get in alignment and you get in balance with what's coming in and what's going out, then whatever it is that you've been trying to rehab, that will come to a completion, and your financial resources will be reset and rebalanced for you. Might be a good time to go buy a lottery ticket and help rebalance it easier. And then, of course, we have Scorpios. And Scorpios, this is your 7th house. This is your marriage partners. This is business contracts or business partners that are coming up for completion and for the ending of your goal. So are you in a relationship that's ready to go to the next level, as in a real commitment? And are you in a toxic, I should say, or are you in a toxic relationship that isn't healthy for you and you have to get out of it? There's something that's possibly happened over the last 2 weeks that has shown you that the relationship is gone as far as it's meant to go, and it's time for you to move on. Now, of course, the sun is in your sign, empowering you, so you feel stronger, you feel more powerful and more comfortable walking away from a situation that just doesn't serve you any longer. You also will feel more confident to take a relationship to the next level. So of course, this really just depends on you, your life, your circumstances, and what's going on. But your serious relationships are changing one way or another. And then we have Sagittarius. Sagittarius, this is something coming to fullness and completion in the 6th house of the work you do. And it could also be your health. And if you work in a health field, then this could be that the work that you do in a health field is changing and shifting in some way, possibly changing in a way that has more financial benefits for you as a result of these changes that are about to happen. So when this is happening in your 6th house of work, the sun is shining a light from your 12th house. So again, that could have to do with hospitals. And so there can be something going on in the hospital that you work in that's creating a change in the way you do your work. Now, maybe your work is going to shift and have more to do with an educational aspect because, of course, Sagittarius rules higher education. So some of you that are looking to shift from doing hands-on healing type of work may sign up to take some kind of class or certification that will allow you to shift into more of a teaching type of role. And there will be a financial reward as a benefit when you make the shift. Speaking of finances, we are moving on into the sign of Capricorn. Capricorn, this is your 5th house. So something coming to completion or fullness that could involve your children. It could involve hobbies. It involves anything associated with your heart. So maybe you've had a child who has relied on you financially and they are taking that next step in their life where they're going to gain some independence. So the sun shines a light from your 11th house of friends and networking groups. So if it's not about your child and their resources, maybe this is your friends pointing out that you're working too much and you need to remember to get out and have some fun. And they're going to entice you to get back to doing the things that you love and that you enjoy and not just invest all your time and energy in work. I know it's a shocking consideration, but you can do it, Capricorns. Go out, go camping, go for a hike, go do something that you love and you'll be re-energized and recharged, and then you can get right back to work. And then we have Aquarius. Aquarius, this is happening for you in your 4th house. So that goal you have for home ownership, that's going to be realized at this time. Maybe because it's Aquarius and 4th house energy, you are getting people that are helping you get a new home ready. Maybe you have friends that want to rent a room from you, but now home feels like where you fit in, where you belong, and that's pretty exciting. For some of you, your home might be changing because of the work that you do, because that sun is shining a light from the 10th house of your career. So it could be that you're spending too much time at work and it's affecting your home life, or your work location is changing, which causes your home to change. But there's something that needs to balance between the work you do and the time you spend at home and with the family, that once you get the balance right, you're going to feel like you hit the jackpot and have a happy home and family life and work life. And last, and of course, never least, we have Pisces. And Pisces, for you, this happens in your 3rd house of the community that you're a part of. This can be some new style of information or communication tools that you use. This can be very creative. And of course, you've had so much focus and attention on your sign with Saturn there, Neptune's back there, the North Node's still there. It's like lesson. And until July, you still got a lot of lessons going on, but you are growing and changing, and you're changing your mind about something because of this 3rd house energy as well. So if you've been studying something, now's the time to bring that to a close. Now's a really good time to ask for help because the sun shines a light from the 9th house, which can be a mentor. And it could be that a mentor is shining a light on an opportunity for you within your community. And you want to tune in and trust your intuition, trust your feelings to guide you, whether it's something you should pursue or not. But I say yes, pursue it. And because it's Taurus energy, there'll be a financial opportunity that follows because you're willing to take a risk and put yourself out there and take your role in the community that you're meant to have. All right. Okay, that is all 12 signs. Of course, just some possibilities. We are not taking into account anything that's going on in your natal chart. So look in your natal chart. Do you have anything that's at 13 degrees of Taurus or 13 degrees of Scorpio or 13 degrees of any other sign or within a few degrees before and after that? Those are influencing your full moon event energetically. And is it a positive influence like these blue signs? Is it red? Is it intense? And don't be afraid of the red lines. Red energy creates change. It forces us to work. And when we do the work, we are rewarded. So don't be afraid when we see too much red energy. We just need to show up and do the work. So let me know in the comments what's been showing up for you, what you are setting your intentions on, what you're ready to complete, what you're ready to end if it's not aligned with your values anymore. And again, take a deep breath and get ready for a little bit of a roller coaster financially over the next few weeks, but trust that this too shall eventually bottom out and flatten out and get smooth again. All right. Thanks again for tuning in, liking, subscribing, commenting, sharing my work, going out to my website, maraleeburnett.com, and booking a session with me if you want to see this breakdown for you and your chart. I'm happy to work with you. All right, guys, take care, and we'll talk next week.